Hello everybody, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening depending on where you are in this amazing world. My name is Donovan Jolly and welcome everybody once again for another amazing video of DIY investing. Over the last week, I've really done my best to try and show you guys the big picture trend with Bitcoin and some of the other cryptocurrencies that I'm heavily invested in. I think that right now, since we're seeing so much fear, since there is so much uncertainty on a global scale, it's important that in these times with most fear, we need to zoom out and take a look at exactly what's taking place on the biggest picture trend. Taking a look at Bitcoin, I've noticed something amazing that is playing out between the last cycle, and I strongly believe that this most recent bear market that we had was the last sell-off in this big picture trend before we go into a massive market cycle. I've got a really cool graph that I've made for you guys on Photoshop that's going to deep dive into all of the technicalities around Bitcoin and its current market structure that proves why this is the bottom and why we are about to see the biggest bull run that we've ever seen in Bitcoin history. The people that are investing now are setting themselves up to make a financial fortune and are going to be the people that are cashing out immense profits by the end of this next cycle. If you're new and just finding this channel, always remember to do me a favor by leaving a like, comment, and subscribing to this channel for more updates. Make sure you guys click that notification bell so you don't miss out on any new videos like the one provided for you here. If you guys are looking to join an amazing cryptocurrency community, I have a Discord server with over 4,000 members and it's growing so fast. I'd love to have you guys a part of there. It's totally free for you guys to join. On the Discord server, I also offer some of my more exclusive content like my video course in signals. The video course is 20 educational videos that teach you guys all of the strategies that I use to profit inside of crypto. So all of my trading plans and all of the tools and resources that I've used to be profitable in crypto, I'm going to teach you guys in 20 educational videos. So if you're somebody that wants to actually learn how to do this by yourself and be a profitable trader in this market, you guys are definitely going to want to check that out. Now the signals are actually a way for you guys to copy my long-term portfolio as well as any of the other trades that I'm taking over the next bull cycle. This is a really important way for you guys to actually copy all of the investments that I'm taking along with exact percentages in which I've allocated to each investment, along with an exit plan for taking profits. So if this is interesting to you guys, make sure you guys join the Discord by clicking in the description of this video, and there you're going to find the invitation link to my server. Once you guys have access, shoot me a message and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Before we jump into this video, I'm going to ask you guys to please smash up that like button. Help me hit 1,000 likes for this video. It would really mean a lot to me. On top of that, make sure you guys smash that subscribe button and help me get to my goal of 20,000 subscribers. We have just over 2,000 left to get there, so help me get to my goal so we can really get this channel out there so that we can enlighten the whole world of what's happening with crypto. With all that being said, thank you guys so much for tuning in today. I love you guys and I appreciate the support so much. With all that being said, let's jump right in the video today. So I've gone through and made you guys this really awesome chart today. Now, what I want to talk about was this market cycle valuation graph, because I know that you guys have seen me bring it up a couple times, but I feel like right now is the best time that we could ever go over this because of the fact what is taking place right now is shaking everybody out. I see so many people that are bearish. I see so many people that are willing to sell their investments now and then are going to try and out trade this volatility by buying lower. And to be quite honest, guys, I just don't see that as a likely scenario for being profitable in this market. For me, it always makes much more sense to zoom out and look at the big picture graph and the cycle because it's so much easier to tell what's going on, and I'll be able to explain to you guys exactly what I mean here. Now, this is the chart that we have. This is the valuation of a market cycle. Now, what I want to talk to you guys about today was how the last cycles in Bitcoin that we just saw from 2015 and still to present day now looks exactly like this market cycle graph. Now, I have two different charts here. We have one that's a little bit longer, and then we have this one that encompasses this graph just on the last cycle alone. But what I wanted to make the point about this video is I believe this entire last cycle from 2015 to current day valuation is still just the first sell-off. And if you take a look at this chart right here, we're going to see that. During the institutional investor wave where the institutions are buying, this is what's known as the first sell-off or the bear trap. And I personally believe that this entire bear market correction from 20K to 3.2K was just the first sell-off. And what we're about to experience is going to be the biggest market cycle in Bitcoin history. Now, let's go through here and first start off with the little one because I wanted to make sure that you guys understand exactly what I'm talking about here. And so we're going to actually go through and analyze the Bitcoin chart, and we're going to compare it to the valuation of a market cycle, and I'm going to show you guys just how correlated these two are. Now, we're going to look at the shorter time frame first. So obviously the first of this starts at the stealth phase. The stealth phase is really where you have the first of the institutions that start. The stealth phase is really where you have the very first of the exchanges start getting added. This is where the first time ever you are able to actually transact and start buying it a little bit more frequently than before. Because you guys got to remember that prior to 2015, really the only people that used Bitcoin were nerds and drug dealers. And so this was really the first wave in which we did get a little bit of public interest, because at this time we were seeing Bitcoin on the news, right? And so this is the stealth phase. This is where smart money accumulates, and this is really early on. And then what starts is the awareness phase. This is when you get the first uptrend, the first higher high, and we can see that this is what starts that uptrending market before we have the blow off top. And this is where the institutional investors become aware, and this is where they start accumulating, is really where we start that uptrend, right? So this is the awareness phase. We start to shed more awareness on the asset, and more people start to accumulate. And then we enter phase 3, which is public, or the mania phase. And really what this means is this is where all of the retail investors, all of the public starts to pick up on Bitcoin, and this is where you have the real bulk of that rise. This is also the first sell-off. After the institutional investors have accumulated, you have one more sell-off on that long-term trend before we leave that trend and go into a very parabolic market in price discovery, right? Now, what you guys are going to find funny, or what I personally found funny, was actually at this first sell-off where I have it labeled, this was actually where China came out and banned Bitcoin. This was right when Bitcoin started breaking the all-time high, and we were about to go very parabolic, and China came out and banned it. We ended up having one more sell-off back down to this trend line before we went into this next parabolic cycle. But I thought that was very interesting how one of the biggest countries, one of the biggest Bitcoin supporters, actually banned Bitcoin, and then it dumped one more time, except it only dumped a little bit, and then the dip was immediately bought up. And then you go into the public part where it's media attention, enthusiasm, greed, delusion, and then new paradigm up here. And then we start the bear market decline. Now, this is where the cycle gets a little bit different, because normally on the original bear market decline, this is where you would actually sell through the trend line. And we can see that this dotted line represents this red trend line right here. And during this initial correction, that's actually where we typically sell through that trend line. We go into despair, and then we flip back and we go into the new market cycle. But what happened in Bitcoin was we came back down to this long-term trend line, and then we held support. We didn't get a capitulation like we normally would see, where we bust through that long-term trend line, and in fact we bounced. And so this is where things are a little bit different, but just because it's a little different doesn't mean that it's going to just be bearish all of a sudden. And in fact, we did still sell through that long-term trend line. The despair just came a little bit over this way. It took a little bit more time to get there, and this time just took a little bit longer of a correction. And so from high to low, we had to correct a little bit longer before we actually broke through that trend line. But what we've experienced now is ultimate despair. This is when the long-term trend has been broken. Everybody thinks it's bearish. I had made these videos a couple days ago talking about the NASDAQ comparison, how we had a 40-year trend line, and then we busted through that trend line in 2008 only to break out and go into new all-time highs. And I expect Bitcoin to be the same way. And so if we look at this, I wanted to share this with you guys because I think that this market cycle graph is very identical with what's currently happening. And I think that we just barely got that despair phase, which will lead us into this next cycle. Now, we have this chart. This is what's really important that I want you guys to pay a lot of attention towards, because I think that this is the most important part that is going to blow your mind. So basically what we have here is the exact same graph, but I've elongated it a little bit more, because I actually believe that this entire cycle from 2015 to current day valuation today is all just the first sell-off and really the stealth phase. Now, what I believe here is that smart money was buying previously to the all-time high of the last cycle. After the all-time high, when we broke out, that went into the institutional investors part. Now, you could actually make the case and the argument that the institutional investors did not even come in until the all-time high, and I'm going to prove it to you guys right here. Now, if you guys are unfamiliar with what happened at the very top of the last Bitcoin cycle and what happened previously, is prior to $20,000 and prior to that new year in Bitcoin, the institutional investors were not even a part of Bitcoin because there just wasn't enough liquidity inside of the market. Bitcoin's market cap was too small for these billion-dollar corporations to start unloading into the market. And so there was an entire growth period that had to happen that lasted, about 9 years in time before institutions actually had the liquidity to invest in Bitcoin. Now, if you guys are not remember, I'm going to share with you what happened during the original decline of this bear market. This was the very top of the Bitcoin cycle. Now, if you guys do not remember, what happened at the very top of the Bitcoin cycle was our first institutional exchange, the CME Bitcoin futures price above 20K in the first day of trading. This is all the way at December of 2017. CME Group long-awaited Bitcoin futures began trading today with a bullish signal as the sell price for its January 18th contracts opens above 20,000. Now, obviously, guys, if you go take a look at any of the big crypto exchanges, most of them didn't even hit 20K. There are a select few that did. And so this shows that this was the exact top of Bitcoin, right? What I thought was really interesting, how this was supposed to be the big catalyst for the last cycle. Everybody thought that when CME got added, that Bitcoin was going to go from 20K to 100K, and it was just going to be the most bullish thing ever for Bitcoin. But in actuality, what ended up happening was at the very top of the cycle, for the first time ever, there was now a market that you could short Bitcoin. Because previously, we did have margin trading, but it wasn't on a big enough scale where real institutions could short the market. And so what I'm making this point about is the fact that at the very top of the cycle was the first time in Bitcoin history where real institutional investors began investing in Bitcoin. And the way that they did it was by shorting the very top of Bitcoin. And so while they shorted Bitcoin and while everybody panic sold, they were buying up everybody else's fear because they were shorting. So everybody else that was selling in fear, they were buying that up through their shorts. And so I thought that this was really interesting because we're seeing this on virtually every graph. If you go on TradingView and you look at Bitcoin against the dollar and you look at all of the biggest exchanges from Bitfinex to Poloniex to Bittrex, to Bitstamp, all of those major exchanges in crypto, almost every single one of them start at about this point. And so what you guys got to remember is when the exchanges started trading for Bitcoin and all of these exchanges went live, that doesn't mean that that's the institutional money that's getting involved, because you got to remember, guys, institutions can't buy Bitcoin until the infrastructure has been built for them. And so the exchanges are the infrastructure for the institutions to start unloading. And that's what we saw back down in here. Exchanges started popping up for Bitcoin, and most of their price history starts at about right here, the very bottom, before we went into this new parabolic cycle. And so, guys, that alone proves that institutions weren't in this market until the all-time high, because for the first time ever, at that all-time high, we now had a way for institutions to short the market. And so they shorted the top of the market. They accumulated the entire way down. They bought the dip down here at 3,200. And that's why we saw such a parabolic rise from 3,200 to 14K with virtually zero consolidation. It did not take nearly the same amount of time as what we saw back here. In fact, it was probably a third. And so what I wanted to talk to you guys about today was the fact that all of what's transpiring is just the first sell-off. This entire thing is just the first sell-off, right? And the institutions sold the market and they accumulated this entire bear cycle, and now they are going to pump the market because they have already bought the dip. And so while everybody else is panicking, while everybody else is fearful, the institutions have already packed their bags and they're sitting on immense Bitcoin holdings, and they're waiting for all of the public to just start pumping their bags into new all-time highs, because guys, we're less than 40 days away from this next halving. 2 different times this has happened. We're getting ready for the 3rd time, and both times this has happened has created an immense bull run. I don't expect this to just randomly flip bearish all of a sudden after such a strong positive uptrend for so many years. In fact, I think it's much more likely that now that the institutions have actually invested into Bitcoin, we are going to start seeing a real parabolic run. Now, this is the video I had for you because I wanted to talk to you guys about these things because I think it's really important what we're seeing today. I mean, if you look at any of the original Bitcoin exchanges, most of them only have price history up to here. That was at a time when there was only about, probably about $7 to $14 billion in market cap for Bitcoin. In fact, when Bitcoin was at $450, I'm pretty sure that it was only at $14 billion in market cap. These institutions have billions and billions and billions of dollars to spend. Warren Buffett himself has a $125 billion cash pile ready to deploy on the current bear market. Now, I'm not saying that he's going to invest in Bitcoin, because he's not going to, but all of these people have real money to invest in Bitcoin. And at the time, you couldn't put $1 billion in Bitcoin, otherwise the price would pump so fast that you wouldn't even get in at the entry price that you wanted. And so, guys, there was not even enough liquidity for institutions back then. And so now that for the first time ever, we are actually getting institutions investing in Bitcoin. We have the framework and the infrastructure for them to start investing. Now you guys are bearish? It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And that's why I make these videos, is just to spread awareness so that we can all understand exactly what I personally foresee. Now, obviously, I'm not always right, and in fact, I make mistakes all the time because I'm only human. But what I can say to you guys is that I understand the way that these cycles work. I can see what's developing on a long-term trend perspective, and to be quite honest, I see way more reason to be bullish than there ever was a bearish scenario. I see a lot of people bearish, but you guys got to remember, out of the 100% of people that invest and trade inside of a financial market, only 10% of those will ever average a profitable return. And I always tell you guys that because it's so important. Whatever the crowd is saying is going to be wrong, and so you don't want to be listening to the crowd. You want to be trusting your own analysis. Even if you're wrong, during the times when you're wrong, you're at least going to be taking something away that you learned from the situation, which is most important of all. So with taking a look at this, guys, I do strongly believe that we just started this new public demand, and this entire cycle from low to low and now the impulse after is all just part of this early adoption. Smart money, institutional investors, and then from the early lows of 2019, we just started this period here, which is going to be media attention, enthusiasm, public greed, delusion, and this is where we see a real parabolic cycle. Obviously, everybody's been expecting for Bitcoin to go into new all-time highs and have a big market cycle, but I quite honestly don't think that people expect it to go as high as I think it's going to, because for me, if I zoom out on this big picture trend, institutions, there's no doubt in my mind that institutions just were not able to buy Bitcoin until this all-time high mark, and they weren't willing to do so because institutions themselves aren't going to FOMO in when everybody else is buying. In fact, they're either going to be shorting the top or they're going to be buying the bottom or just accumulating the entire bear market dip, and that's what they did. They shorted the top while all of the public started selling, while all of retail panic sold as we dipped. They were there collecting their short profits from all of the panic sellers, and they accumulated everybody else's Bitcoin. And so all of the institutions have your Bitcoin. I shared that chart with you guys not too long ago that showed that 87% of the Bitcoin are controlled by 1% of the addresses, meaning it never was retail that was heavily invested into Bitcoin. Previously, it was retail investors, but now all of the institutional investors stole their Bitcoin during the bear market. And so now it really is a market packed, primed, full of institutional investors, and that's really what is generating all of this next market cycle that we're about to see. They accumulated the dip. They created this first impulse. This first impulse is what got all of the public excited, and now that we're so close away from this halving, just over a month away, we are now going to see what a real parabolic market cycle looks like, because the last one is going to be nothing compared to what's about to take place, and I'm very confident in saying that. So if you guys found any value in this, always remember to do me a favor by leaving a like, comment, and subscribing to this channel. Make sure you guys join the Discord server by clicking in the description of this video. There you're going to find the link to my server. Once you guys have access through there, you guys can join for free, or if you want access to my more exclusive content, shoot me a message and I will get back to you as soon as possible. But with all this being said, guys, once again, just keep a level head, ignore all of the public, ignore all of the uncertainty that you're seeing, ignore the FUD from all of the mainstream news, just stick to your cards and then just play the hand that you're given. And in fact, if you've already stuck to this trading plan thus far, this shouldn't be really that big of a shakeout, and in fact, you should have used this as an opportunity to buy the dip. And so make sure you guys are just keeping a level head with all of what's going on in the world right now. By showing you this chart, I really hope that I was able to open your eyes as to exactly what's taking place on a big picture trend, because not only did Bitcoin follow this exact parabolic trend in the last cycle, but this entire low to low and this entire cycle today is still part of this early awareness phase. In fact, we are still just starting this next parabolic run, and we just barely left the institutional awareness phase. And so in my opinion, guys, this is where we're going to start to see Bitcoin being talked about a lot on the news. With us being so close to that halving, it only makes sense that that's going to be the catalyst for this next cycle. And in my opinion, what I've personally experienced is in the last week, I've had 4 different people. 2 of them were personal family members. 2 of them were just friends that I've known through family. And really, I've seen 4 different people reach out to me saying that they've either bought cryptocurrency or they're asking me how to do so and what to buy. And so we're starting to see that next wave of public demand. And in my opinion, we're only going to see prices cascade and balloon from here. So make sure you guys are preparing for this. Make sure that you guys are viewing this long-term trend, because to be quite honest, I don't see the reason to be bearish. There's much more going on that meets the eye. And, you know, the people that are just ignoring all of this uncertainty right now are going to set themselves up for a massive ROI over this next cycle. So thank you guys so much for tuning in today. I will catch you in the next video. As always, peace out.